Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, we are talking about Despia, and we are going to be going over the combos for Despia Darklord, for Master Duel specifically. So, obviously, it's not everything that is currently available in the TCG or the OCG for Despia, but this is more so specifically catered to Master Duel. So, let's quickly hop into the card by card for the deck, and then we will hop into the combos. So, first and foremost, we have 2 Aluber, the Jester of Despia. This card is very good. On normal or special, it searches out a branded spell or trap. Also, if a fusion monster leaves the field while this card is in your graveyard, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls, special summon this card, negate the targeted monster's effect until the end of the turn. Very, very solid. It's an extra floating effect, and yeah, it's very nice. Also, it does have a hard once per turn, and you can only use one effect each, or one effect per turn. Sorry. Now, why is it that we're playing 2 if this is one of the best cards? Reason being, we have a million ways to see it. Well, not a million, but we have a lot of ways to see it. We can search it off of Despian, the Tragedy. We can search it off of Opening, and we can also draw into it with things like Eggshell or Allure of Darkness. So we have a lot of ways to see it. So we're only playing 2. We don't need to play any more as well, seeing as how it has a floating effect. And yeah, moving on, we are playing for the Darklords. We are playing triple Eggshell. Draw cards, pretty self-explanatory. It also can copy Darklord spells or traps from the grave. Pretty nice. Also, it's just big. We are playing 1 Morningstar. Realistically, you don't need to be playing this card. This card could be cut. But it's very nice for the fusion summon of the first Darklord down here. It allows you to nuke the field by using this guy's material. So, very nice. Well, it nukes the opponent's field, not yours. So, it's very nice just to have. Also, you can normal summon it sometimes to get really powerful, well, not really powerful, but you can get like powerful boards onto the field. But yeah, it's just a very solid card, and it's my personal favorite, so we're running 1 of it. I'm running 2 Superbia, reason being, it's a little bit of a brick, and I know what you're saying, but you're playing 42 cards. So why are you not playing 3, or why are you playing 42 instead of 40? Reason being, this just seemed to work the best. There wasn't anything that I really wanted to cut. Yeah, sure, I could cut Morningstar, but that takes away the potential to nuke my opponent's field, which came up quite a bit. And yeah, it's not really necessary to play 3 of this, so I'm only playing 2. We are playing 1 Ukobak for the targets for Indulged. So you special summon the Ukobak when this card is normal or special summoned, so that you don't give your opponent something like a Superbia or an Eggshell or something like that, which is significantly higher attack or defense. So yeah, just easier card to deal with, seeing as how 700 attack is way easier to deal with than 2900. That's mostly it. And because of the fact that Indulged is actually one of the best normal summons, because it does get your combo started sometimes, depending on your hand, it's very nice to have a target for that. So that's why we're playing the 1 Ukobak. I never really summoned this off of like Superbia or Contact or something like that, unless it's pretty dire. But yeah, there you go. And then of course we're playing the 2 Indulged, as I had previously mentioned. And then for the rest of the Darklord cards, we're playing 3 Banishment and 2 Contact. We don't need Contact nearly as much, seeing as how we can also basically Contact with the first Darklord, which is pretty easy to summon here. So, moving on to the rest of the Despia stuff, we are playing triple Tragedy. I'll explain a little bit more about this when we talk about some of the other cards, but just know it's very solid, and it searches cards for us. We're playing 1 Dramaturg. This card's crazy. While it's on the field, if a Fusion Synchro Exe or Link monster is special summoned, just in any way, you can target an effect monster on the field, negate its effects until the end of the turn. Very, very solid. And because it is when a card is summoned instead of at some other time, you can oftentimes negate the summon or negate the effect of a monster that is summoned to the field. So, for example, if your opponent would go into a Black Rose Dragon, you could chain this basically in response to the activation of their effect, negate the effect, prevent the board wipe. Something like that. Very, very solid. However, if you are a turn player and your opponent special summons something like, for example, Tri-Brigade Shureg, your card will go last, or technically it will go first, but it'll be chain link 1, meaning that your opponent will be able to chain link everything in response, so the negate kind of doesn't do anything. Moving on, we are playing 2 Fallen of Albaz. This card is basically copies of Super Polymerization 3 and 4. The reason we're not playing more copies of this is because it does require you to summon it, which is kind of difficult to do. It either takes the normal summon and a discard, or you have to special summon it, which is kind of hard to do. But it's still very nice because while it's not unrespondable, you can respond to this, you can negate it, but it's still very nice and does tend to force out interaction. So it's nice. We've talked about Indulged. As this is for Master Duel, we're playing triple Max C, just the best hand trap. We're also playing some light hand traps specifically because we do need some light monsters for our fusions down here. So we're playing 1 Nibiru because you can draw off of Max C. You could play more. I don't find the need to. It's nice when it comes up, but not too necessary. We are playing 2 Gamma and 1 Driver. So that's our light hand traps. As I had mentioned, we are playing Allure of Darkness. So this card works really well with Tragedy, because Tragedy says if this card is sent to the graveyard or banished by card effect, you can add a Despia monster from your deck to your hand. So that's the main effect of it. So you can actually banish it with Allure of Darkness, since it banishes for effect, to allow you to then search another card, allowing you to draw 2 new cards and search a card, which is 3 new cards to your hand with Tragedy. So very, very solid. That's why we're playing this. We are playing, as I mentioned, to the triple triple banishment, double contact. We are playing 2 branded opening. We don't need to see this all that often, and since it does require you to discard cards, you don't always want to see it, or you might not always have the ability to see it. But we also can see it off of Aluber. We can just search it out off of Aluber. So it's not necessarily uncommon to find it, seeing as how we have Tragedy to search it. We have Aluber himself to search it, as well as just drawing it. So it's pretty common. But you discard a card for effect, meaning if something were to Ash Blossom it or what have you, anything that would negate this, you don't discard. But if you do discard, you can also activate Tragedy's effect. So you discard Tragedy, and then Tragedy will activate its effect because it was discarded due to card effect instead of for cost. So again, another way to search out Aluber or Dramaturg. Very nice. On top of that, we are able to special summon a monster or add a monster to our hand. Any of the any of the Despia cards, we are able to special summon or add to our hand with this. And since it's a quick play, you can do it during the opponent's turn. On top of that, if a fusion monster, while this card is in the graveyard, if a fusion monster you control would be destroyed by card effect, you could banish it from the graveyard. So if your opponent goes for something like a Raigeki, you could just banish this, protect your big fusion monsters, and proceed from there. So very, very solid card. Again, we only need 2. We are also playing 2 Despia Theater. This card is a fusion spell, basically, that just sticks around. It's a continuous fusion spell, very similar to something like Dark Contract of the Swamp for DDDs, except you don't get a banish from the grave. On top of that, it does have a floating effect. So if a face-up non-fusion fairy monster you control leaves the field, you can target a level 8 or higher fusion monster from the graveyard and special summon it. Very, very nice as a floating effect. Moving on to the rest of the cards, we are playing 2 Called by the Grave because it's at 2. We are playing 2 Forbidden Droplets. You don't need to see more of this. 3 is kind of bricky. And then 2 Super Poly. We would play 3 if we could. Absolutely crazy card. Deals with so many different boards. Just, yeah, absolutely crazy. Moving on to the extra deck, we are actually playing 2 Super Polymerization targets in Mud Dragon of the Swamp, as well as Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Just the 2 best Super Polymerization targets. If you end up going up against Prank Kids a lot, which might be the case in the future, you could include the Prank Kids Wash, or Weather Washer, or something like that. That just requires any 2 Prank Kids monsters. So if your opponent summons out some Prank Kids, you could just Super Poly them away into your own Super or Weather Washer. So that's kind of interesting. Moving on, we are also playing 2 targets for our Fallen of Albaz in Albion, which can just fusion summon again when it's fusion summoned. You get a fusion summon again by banishing materials from the hand, field, or graveyard. And then Titaniclad, which is just a big boy. So there you go. We are also playing 2 Despia fusion monsters in Proskenion, as well as Q. I don't know how to say this name, so I just call him Q. Realistically, you don't need more than this. Q floats, as well as with the field spell, you can float from Q. He's not the greatest. He just changes during the main phase. The attack of all monsters that are not level 8 or higher fusion monsters to 0, which is nice. But it's mostly just because he's big and he floats. And Proskenion is pretty similar. He has a burn effect if you destroy a monster by battle. And on top of that, he's 32/32. But he does require a Despia and a light and a dark monster. Whereas Q only requires a Despia, a light, or dark monster. So yeah, just 2 materials for this, 3 for this. We don't have Guardian Chimera, otherwise we'd definitely be playing that. We're also playing 2 of the first Darklord. This is mostly what you'll end up going into, seeing as how all of your, well, most of your cards are Dark Fairies, except for this guy. This guy's a dragon. But you can just go into this guy off of any of those with the effect of your theater. And this guy's very good. He prevents all fairies from being targeted, which is absolutely crazy. On top of that, he's 4K. On top of that, with a branded fusion branded opening in the graveyard, he's protected from card destruction. On top of that, if you use you can use the second effect to special summon from the grave, something like a Superbia, which then can special summon again from the grave. On top of that, you can special summon from the hand with this effect as well. On top of that, if it's fusion summoned specifically using the Darklord Morningstar, you can nuke your opponent's field. However, you can't use this effect if you do that. So, absolutely insane card. Very, very solid. Moving on, we are playing 2 Xyz monsters in number 38 Hope Harbinger, as well as AA Zeus. You don't need these. You could switch them out for anything. But we do have a lot of ways to get to level 8s. Q is a level 8, as well as both of the Albaz monsters, as well as Starving Venom, as well as Dramaturg and Superbia. So lots of ways to get to 8s, which we can overlay into this guy if we need to, and then into Zeus. As for the Link monsters, we're playing Access Code, Apollosa, Condemned Darklord. Condemned can be summoned off of any 2 fairies, which means the Despia cards are also very good, because you could just link them off into the Condemned, which gets your Darklord stuff going. We're playing IP Masquerena and then Unicorn as well. So that's the deck. Let's hop into some combo breakdowns. Alright, so here we are with the first combo. So, first of all, we have Aluber, we have Dramaturg, and Superbia. So I'm going to first start off by normal summoning the Aluber. Aluber will then search out the fusion spell, or the field spell. So the field spell, we will then activate and activate its effect. So this allows us to fusion summon a level 8 or higher fusion monster from the extra deck. So what we are going to do is we will send everything to the grave for this. Send everything to the grave, and we will bring out our first Darklord. Now, the effect of Dramaturg activates when it is used as fusion material and sent to the graveyard or banished. You can special summon it. So we are going to special summon it. I put it in face-up attack position while it is, potentially going to be hit by something like Lightning Storm. It's not that big of a deal. It's way better in attack position. Anyway, moving on, we can also activate the effect of the first Darklord to special summon out Superbia. Superbia's effect will then be able to activate in order to special summon out our Jester. And then at this point, we can potentially go into a Link monster. So we will send these to the grave and special summon out our... We could either go Condemned, depending on if we wanted to discard another card, or if we had another card to discard. And then we could potentially go for like Ixchel or something along those lines if we wanted to. Or we could just go for IP Masquerena, which is what I'm going to do here. Now, IP, during the opponent's turn, as long as we have another card in hand, we could link this off as well as the Dramaturg in order to go for a Nightmare Unicorn, which I'm actually going to put over here to send these two to the grave. And then, again, during the main phase, we could activate the Nightmare Unicorn during the opponent's turn, discard a card, and then spin one of their cards back. And then, again, during the main phase, we can activate this guy's effect to bring back this Superbia, which will then be special summoned in defense. And then we could bring back the Dramaturg with the Superbia effect. Or, if, say, they wanted to go to the end of main phase, you could bring back the Aluber and get another search there. So, that's more or less what you're looking to do with this deck. And that's why the first Darklord is so very good. Being able to just constantly recur materials with Superbia is absolutely good. Just crazy. Alright, so here we have another situation where we have Fallen Volbaz, and then potentially something that my opponent would have, either a light or a dark, or more specifically, something with 2500 or more attack. So with Fallen Volbaz, it's pretty simple, but a normal or a special, you discard a card and then use Super Polymerization into either your Albion or your, where is he, Titaniclad. So I'm going to go for Albion here. It does require a light monster, so if your opponent has something like a Nibiru, you could potentially do this, or just anything that's a light. And there's a lot of Dogmatica currently being played on the ladder because of Despia. A lot of people are playing Despia Dogmatica or Dogmatica Invoked or stuff like that. So lots of lights are running around. We will have to send a card to the graveyard, and this is for cost. So you will have to send it even if it gets negated. So do keep that in mind. But then we will send these two to the graveyard. So this guy would go to the grave, but I literally can't do anything. I don't know why that's the case, but dueling book, you know. And then, yeah, we will just Super Polymerization basically into Albion. Now, Albion effect is very interesting. If this card is Fusion Summon, you can Fusion Summon one level 8 or lower Fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing materials listed on it from your hand, field, or graveyard. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard this turn, you can add to your hand or set a branded spell or trap directly from your deck. So it has a nice floating effect as well. But at this point, we will go for the Fusion Summon, and since we have two of these guys in the grave, as well as, you know, potentially we have, I mean, we could use this guy as well, or we could use, you know, say we had the Ixchel in our grave or something along those lines, we could go for our second fusion being Titaniclad. We could also potentially go for something like well, we can't go for Starving Venom, but we could go for Q here, since we have a Despia, but we don't have a light, well, actually, we can go for Q. So we're going to go for Q here, just by banishing this one, or sorry, whoops, banish, and banish. And then Tragedy's effect will be able to activate since it was banished for an effect. So Tragedy will activate here, and we will add to our hand something like Dramaturg, right? We can add Dramaturg here since we don't have a normal summon. I guess we could, depending on if we want to have a better follow-up, we could add the Aluber or the Dramaturg. So something like that is that's why we're playing the Albaz. So I could tribute off this guy. Now I could also tribute off the Ixchel instead to go for the Titaniclad, and then Titaniclad would just be a big chunker. That's mostly what he is. He also has a kind of pseudo-floating effect. During the end phase, you can either add to your hand or special summon a Fallen Volbaz or Dogmatica card. So there's that. But most of the time, he's just really big. Like, he gets up to 4,000 very easily. So that's the Fallen Volbaz stuff. Alright, so here we are with Tragedy and Allure, and then all you need is either a light or a dark, and this is a pretty standard setup. So what we will start off doing is go for Allure, and it doesn't matter what we draw off of this, we're literally just going to ignore these two cards. And we will banish the Despia Tragedy. Tragedy's effect will activate in order to grab us Aluber. So we will add this guy to the hand, this guy will go to grave, and we will normal summon the Aluber. Aluber's effect will then activate in order to search out our field spell. So we'll add the field spell, and this is where the light comes in. So we'll activate the field spell, declare it. We will send the light or the dark to the grave, as well as our Despia, in order to special summon out our Despian Q. So we will special summon out this guy. Now, at this point, it may not look like much, which, to be fair, it's kind of not. But Q has a floating effect. Aluber has a protection effect. It's not a protection effect. But also a floating effect where he can summon himself out, as well as our Despia Theater of the Branded has a floating effect. So something that could happen is, for example, your Q will go to grave. The activation of Despia will activate. You will negate the effect. Well, first of all, you'll target a face-up effect monster your opponent controls. You will special summon out the guy. You will negate the effect at that same point, and then he's on the field. Now, if this guy were also to be sent to the grave, what would happen is Q would come back. Now, on top of this, if Q is destroyed specifically leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, unless it is sent back to the extra deck, you are able to search or special summon out one of your Despia monsters. So you could potentially go for a Dramaturg, or if you didn't want to activate the floating effect of Aluber, you could special summon out the Aluber here and get the search for him. I think it's definitely a better option to use the protection effect and then special summon out the Dramaturg, because 3,000 attack tends to be the cap for a lot of decks. So if you summon out this, they're either going to have to crash or just kind of sit there. And it also negates an extra deck monster, which is very nice. So yeah, all in all, there's a lot of floating just with those 2 cards on field. On top of that, if say potentially you had a branded opening in your grave, you could also protect your Q through that. You may want to consider just letting it go, depending on what else your opponent has on field. So it's still something to consider, but yeah, there's a lot of protection and recursion that this deck has. Okay, so here I have kind of crafted one of the best hands that you can get, which is Ixchel Superbia, a way to get to Contact, Branded Opening, and Tragedy. Realistically, not all of these cards are exactly necessary. This could just be Contact. Branded Opening doesn't need to be specifically Branded Opening. Same with Tragedy. It could be Aluber and a Branded Opening. It could be Aluber and Theater. It could be Theater and well, no, it can't be Theater and Tragedy. Actually, it could. Anyway, so yeah, there's a bunch of different cards that it could be. You do kind of need Ixchel and Superbia, or at the very least, a way to get Superbia into the grave along with another fairy for it to special summon without using the Branded Opening, which is a little bit more difficult. But yeah, let's move on to how this works. So first and foremost, we are going to send your Ixchel and Superbia to the grave to draw 2. Again, it doesn't matter what we draw here, so I'm just going to draw 2. Again, we're going to ignore these. And then we will use our effect of our banishment to search out Contact. Add to the hand the Contact. And then this goes to the grave. We will activate our Contact here to contact back our Superbia. Superbia's effect will activate to special summon out Ixchel here. So this card will go to the... Oh, no. Go to the grave. Now, here I could search out another monster with the Ixchel. So I'm going to send this card back to the deck, and we'd pay 1,000 life points here to search out something like Indulged. We could search out Ukobak, or we could search out Morningstar. Morningstar is very good if you plan to use him on the opponent's, or on your 3rd turn, basically, to wipe your opponent's field. So I'm going to actually do that. Oh, no, not what I wanted. Add this guy to the hand. Okay, so yeah, there you go. At this point, I'm going to link off these 2 to send to the grave. We will go for a Condemned. Now, I said we would ignore the 2 cards that we drew. We do need at least something to discard for the effect of Condemned. So I'm going to activate the effect of Condemned here. We are going to pitch, we'll say we pitch the Forbidden Droplets here to search out we could search out Indulged, we could search out Ixchel, we could search out Superbia. Again, doesn't really matter. Just search out something. I'm going to search out the Indulged since we don't already have one. At this point, we still haven't normaled. On top of that, we are not locked into fusions. So we do want to keep that in mind. So there you go. Realistically, I could have also gone into IP Masquerena if I felt like I needed Apollosa or something along those lines during my opponent's turn. I could go into Unicorn as well during my opponent's turn. But yeah, here we're going to go for Indulged. Now, we will activate the effect of Branded Opening. Branded Opening's effect will allow us to pitch our... to the grave. We will send that guy to the grave, and we will special summon out the Dramaturg. The reason we do this is because off of the Tragedy, since we sent it to the graveyard with Branded, as an effect instead of a cost, we are able to add the Aluber. to the hand. So we're going to add that guy to our hand. And then we have Dramaturg, which can bring itself back if used as fusion material. Again, still haven't normaled. So we're going to normal out the Aluber and search out the field spell. So now with the field spell, we will activate it, and then we will declare its effect in order to send, we will send this guy, we will send this guy, and we will send this guy, all to the grave in order to special summon out the man himself, the first Darklord. Now, first Darklord's effect will activate, we will activate its effect in order to special summon out our Superbia. Now, I could either go for Indulged here, or I could go for the Dramaturg. Dramaturg tends to be better, but Indulged could allow you to potentially... So, for example, if you didn't have Condemned here, and maybe you wanted to search out Indulged instead of Morningstar, you could go into IP here. So let me show you what you could do instead of this. So instead, you could potentially go IP Masquerena. And with IP Masquerena, your best option would be to go for the Indulged, because it allows you to get another search. So that's a good option there. It does lock you into fairy effects, but that's only for the rest of the turn, and we're probably not going to be doing anything else. However, if you go for Condemned for the Link Summon, you could go for Dramaturg here and special summon it out. So with IP, special summon out the Indulged. With Condemned, special summon out the Dramaturg. So I'm going to bring out the Dramaturg here. This is going to go back to the extra deck, and we will special summon out the Condemned again. Sorry, move to there. So yeah, again, here, all of these monsters are non-targetable because of the first Darklord's effect. On top of that, Dramaturg has the effect to be able to negate. At the end of the... during end phase, Condemned will activate to gain you 2,000 life points because we have 4 monsters, or 4 fairies onto the... Wait, is it fairies? Yes. We have 4 fairies on the field. On top of that, we have the floating effect of the Despia Theater, as well as we have the floating effect of Aluber and the branded protection effect for our fusion monster. All of which is very, very solid and difficult for most boards to deal with. Again, this is an ideal hand. This is not something that you will always end on. And again, you could potentially switch this out for an IP Masquerena instead, and then you could potentially go into an Apollosa that is untargetable during your opponent's turn. Right, you send this guy to the grave, you send this guy to the grave, you send this guy to the grave, and then you can bring out a 3-material Apollosa that is non-targetable and has 3 negates during your opponent's turn. Unless you get, like, Lava Golem or something like that. And then, again, if we were to continue this play, we could even activate our first Darklord again to bring out the Superbia again, and then bring out, once again, the Dramaturg. It's a very similar board because of the consistent power of the first Darklord. So, yeah, absolutely crazy what you can do, and more specifically, the amount of recursion that this deck has, which is why I don't play back row removal. You could just kind of play through back row. So, there you go. All right, so let's say you don't actually have a good way to get to your Link monsters, right? You have Indulged, which locks you into fairy monsters, and you have Branded Opening, which locks you into fusions. And you don't have any other Despia monsters, you know, maybe the other 2 cards in hand you used because they were hand traps or something along those lines. What do you do from here? Well, Indulged is actually a combo starter as well, but it does require a few more specific pieces. One, it does require you to have something like a Branded Opening or the field spell so that you can go into one of the fusion monsters. But it also may require something like Ixchel. So here's a hand that we could potentially get, and we're just going to start off with Indulged here. Indulged is going to special summon to the opponent's side of the field in defense position. Sorry, hold on. In defense position, we are going to special summon the Uka back to the opponent's side of the field, and we will add to our hand a Superbia. Now, if you draw something like a contact off of this, that's great. If you don't, that's fine. So I'm just going to send these to the grave and then act as if we didn't draw a contact or anything like that. So, yeah. At this point, we're going to activate the Branded Opening. We're going to pitch a card to the grave, and we will special summon out the Aluber. Okay. Aluber's effect will activate in order to search the fusion spell. And then either we can fusion summon using the cards that we already have in hand, as well as this guy. You know, potentially if we had drawn another fairy-type monster instead, we could go for the first Darklord to bring back the Superbia and the Ixchel that we have. And then, you know, at least we have something there. But let's say that we don't, as we do in this hand. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the effect of the Theater to send these two to the grave in order to go for Q. So again, not the greatest. It does require you to have Ukobak on your opponent's side of the field, which could be highly detrimental against something like Phantom Knights. But, I mean, in game one, you're probably not going to know whether your opponent is playing Phantom Knights or Virtual World or something like that that can take advantage of this level 3. But it's definitely better than giving your opponent something like Superbia, which can literally just natively get over Q and put the pressure on Q. So, yeah. But all in all, we still have a branded opening, an Aluber, as well as the Theater all in grave for additional follow-up. So all in all, not terrible. Pretty nice for us there. And this was off of an Indulged this time. So, nice. Alright, so what do you do if you have a hand that is full of Darklords and no real way to get to your Despia engine, meaning you can't go for fusions? Well, let's quickly explain that. So first and foremost... Oh, no, nope, not that one. First and foremost, we are going to activate the effect of our Ixchel to send it and Superbia, or whatever other Darklord card that we have, to the grave in order to draw 2. Now, if you still don't have your Despia engine, like I do here, somehow that happened, as long as we have a way to get to contact, we should be pretty good. So we can contact here and special summon out our Superbia as well as our Ixchel off of the Superbia effect. And then this goes to the grave. Now, I could potentially go for the link summon of Condemned to search out something like a Morningstar and potentially summon that. Or I could go and normal summon Indulged. So, yeah, we have a few options at this point. Now, realistically, I could have also sent the Indulged to the grave instead of the Superbia. So, so that, you know, if I had special summoned it off of the Contact with Ixchel's effect... here, let me show you. So, say this card was in my hand instead, and we had this card in the grave. We'd bring back the Ixchel. We'd activate the Ixchel effect to special summon this by shuffling this card into the deck, and then the effect of Indulged would activate to special summon out the Ukobak to the opponent's side of the field. So, if I had done this instead, which probably is better, it kind of depends. It really depends on what other cards are in your hand. But if we went with this is also pretty good because now we can go for Condemned here. We can send these two to the grave. We can search out, we can use Condemned's effect. We can activate its effect to send the Superbia to the grave, allowing us to search out our, where is he? Our first Darklord. So we're going to search out this guy. We're going to activate the effect of, not activate the effect. We're going to tribute summon out our Morningstar by banishing 2 of our cards from the grave. So we're going to banish. And then we could go for Morningstar here. And then at this point, we can activate its effect in order to mill 3 cards because there's an Ukobak, a Condemned, and a Morningstar, which is 3 Darklords. So, not what I wanted. Mill 1, 2, and 3. Notably, I don't think this card activates if it is sent off of the Morningstar, because it sends to the top, it sends a card from the top of the deck to the graveyard. I don't know. It never activates for me in Master Duel. I don't know why, but it doesn't. So there's that. You don't get the search, but you might. But anyway, we've already used our normal anyway, so it wouldn't really help unless you had the field spell in hand as well. But yeah, at this point, there's not really a lot more that we could do. Potentially, instead of going for the Condemned, instead of going for Ixchel and Indulged, you could have gone for Superbia and Indulged. So let me show you what that would do. So let's move this guy to the top of the deck. Let's move this guy to the extra deck. Let's bring out our Superbia instead. And let's say that we still have this one in hand, and this one is on the... Oh, no. It's on the field. and we had a Contact Engrave. So, at this point, I could have normal summoned the Indulge to give my opponent the Ukobek and then search out, something. This does lock me into fairies. Do keep that in mind. But what we can do here is we can search out, potentially an Ixchel for additional follow-up, depending on if we have another Darklord in hand, or it's probably the best one to search out if you need additional follow-up. And then what we can do is we can go into IP. So we can go IP Masquerena using, it doesn't really matter what 2 we have. So I'm going to send the Superbia here because we have the Contact Engrave, so we could contact back another Indulged, or we could contact back Superbia with the Ixchel here. And then IP, if we contact back another monster, IP could potentially go for a 3-mat Apo, or we could go for a Unicorn to discard a card and spin a monster back from the deck, or into the deck from on your opponent's side of the field. So it's a little bit better in terms of disruption, but it's not as safe. I think Morningstar is just like an overall stronger card individually, but IP is definitely also worth considering. But obviously we can't activate any other effects that are not fairy types. That doesn't matter during the opponent's turn because, sorry, not what I wanted. Because, the lockout from Indulged would no longer be there. So, that's something you could do with pure Darklords. Alright, so, first of all, I want to just show you, I'm going to do some test hands, but I do want to show you the order in which you should banish cards for Allure, just as like a baseline. Don't always do this because it does depend on what else you have in hand. But just as a baseline, Tragedy is always the first one that you want to be banishing. It gets you an additional search, and it's really difficult for a lot of cards to deal with cards specifically in the graveyard, or sorry, in the banish pile, unless they have like an Ash Blossom or something like that. But all in all, yeah, banish Tragedy first. It gets you additional cards off of Allure. So yeah, banish that one. Then I would say it's probably Ukobek. Ukobek is nice, but it's only useful if you have Indulged, and you technically do have other targets for Indulged, so depending on your hand, Ukobek is probably the best one there. Moving on, I would say it is Fallen of Albaz. The reason for this, instead of Indulged, is because unless you are specifically going second, this card's not as useful. If you are going second, do keep this one in hand, and then instead banish a Indulged. So far, Tragedy is the first one you want to banish, and then it's just 3 cards that you don't really need, but are nice. Next, we have our Morningstar. I know it kind of sucks to banish the, your favorite card, as it is mine. It does kind of suck to not actually end up using Morningstar, but all in all, it's more dead than a lot of these other cards, right? Next, we have Superbia. Superbia, it's nice. We have other copies of it, but more importantly, it can just be kind of a brick in your hand. Then we have ourselves the Dramaturg. Dramaturg is very, very important, and definitely something you want to see and not have banished, since you don't really have a good way to get it back if it is banished, unless it is specifically banished for a fusion summon. Yeah, it's not great. You really just don't want to banish this. At this point, you don't want to banish either of these cards, and you really don't want to banish these ones either. Now, granted, if you don't have any other Darklord cards, you should probably be banishing Ixchel and keeping Dramaturg. Just a rule of thumb. However, if you have any other Darklord cards, Ixchel's just a +2. So it's very, very nice to just draw 2 cards, It gets you into your combos oftentimes, so there's that. And then last but not least, we do have Aluber. Aluber can sometimes be a really good banish because your hand already has Aluber or access to him, but if your hand doesn't, he's the least likely thing that you would want to banish because it does get your plays started. Normal or special summoning him in any way really does help you figure out your hand. So yeah, just a little thing that I figured you might want to know. Alright, so now I'm going to do some test hands. As I had previously mentioned, this deck is... It's really not a combo deck. It's you really do have to know what's in your hand, all of the cards, and that more so helps you out in understanding what you can and cannot do. So here we have Maxi, Nibiru, Fallen of Albaz, we have Ukobek, and Banishment. So The only card that really does anything for us is Banishment. So we're going to activate our Banishment here. Oh, not what I wanted. Not what I wanted. We will search out the Ix here to draw more cards. So we'll send that guy to the grave. We will activate the effect of our Ix, sending the Ukobak and the Ix to the grave, and then draw two. So we draw a Lure here, which is pretty nice. We also draw Morningstar, not the greatest. So we're going to activate this. We're going to draw two. We draw into Superbia and Gamma. I mean, we're going to banish here our Morningstar. But we do have, notably, quite a few really good cards. Gamma, Maxi, and Nibiru, all for the opponent's turn. So while this may not look great, we do have Fallen of Albaz, so if we do end up giving our opponent a big old Nibiru token, we can actually Fallen of Albaz, normal summon it, and then fuse off into Albion, which could then potentially get us more fusions. So it looks pretty meh, but it's not terrible. Yeah. We could even Maxi, and then if they Ash Blossom, we could Gamma that as well, which gets us more monsters onto the field, which is very funny. So, yeah, not the worst hand, but it's definitely not, like, something that we can really do. It kind of depends on what our opponent does. So, one thing I do want to mention is this deck is really good at going second. For example, in a situation like this, Maxi, Gamma, and then two going second cards in Super Poly and Forbidden Droplets is very nice. Like, it is. It really is very nice. So if we were to draw another card, this would potentially get our combo started. We could also, you know, potentially have done something with this Maxi. You know, if we drew more cards, if they ended up taking the Maxi challenge or what have you, we could potentially stop them with Gamma. It kind of is up in the air from here, but I just wanted to show you there is a lot of going second potential here, which makes it really, really strong for specifically Master Duel in best of one scenarios. Just having access to a lot of these powerful going second tools is very nice. Okay, this time we drew Double Called by the Grave and Branded Opening, which is very important. We also drew Fallen of Albaz, which is nice, but not necessarily important. So, in fact, we're going to go for the Branded Opening, and we will send this guy to the graveyard in order to special summon. Actually, no, I need to keep this guy. I lied. We're going to send a Called By to the grave instead, and we do need this guy in our hand. So, we're going to go for a Aluber. Sorry. Aluber effect is going to activate. We are going to grab up the Fusion spell. We will activate the effect of the Fusion spell. We will send to the grave our Fallen of Albaz, as well as our Aluber. So now, here, I could potentially go for an Albion. I can't go for Titaniclad. I could go for Albion, or I could go for Q. Those are the only two options that I have. I could have technically normal summoned the Albaz as well, in order to go into Starving Venom Fusion Dragon if I wanted to. Not really the option that you need to go for. But yeah, Q is definitely the best choice here. And now, we do have Super Poly and Called By, but that's all we have. So I'm just going to set the Called By, and we'll keep the Super Polymerization in hand if we need it. But yeah, it's not the greatest, but we do have things like Called By the Grave, which is absolutely crazy in the current meta, as well as, again, the Floating Effect, the Despia Theater, we have Aluber and Branded Opening, which is a lot of different ways to just get our guys back onto the field, or just recur a bunch of advantage. So it's pretty difficult to deal with, but not, like, terribly insane. We don't really have any ways of interrupting the opponent unless they try to interact with us. Alright, so here we have a really stellar hand. The only thing that's not the greatest is the Morningstar, but other than that, we have a normal summon, we have Tragedy and Branded Opening, we have Banishment, all very, very solid. So first and foremost, what we'd want to do is actually, I like to activate Banishment because Branded Opening is a little bit more important. So if this Banishment were to get Ash Blossomed or something along those lines, we'd still have plays with the Branded Opening half of the deck. So let's say that this actually resolves. We're going to search out the Ix here. So we're going to add Ix to the hand. And then before we actually get locked into fusion monsters because of Branded Opening, I wanted to activate the effect of Ix. If we end up seeing something like a Contact, we can go into the Link Summon of Masquerena or the Link Summon of Condemned, both of which are very, very solid for us. So we're going to draw 2. We drew Superbia and Contact. That is very, very solid. So here we'll activate the Contact. We will bring back the Ixchel. Ixchel effect will copy the Contact effect to bring back the Indulged, which this does lock us into fairies, so do keep that in mind. However, this is going to go and be shuffled back into the deck. So we're going to shuffle that up. And then at this point, I'm going to just link off real quick into an IP Masquerena. So these 2 will go to the grave. All right. Now, at this point, we go Branded Opening. We always will be sending the Tragedy to the grave because we do get the effect off of Tragedy here. We'll special summon out the Aluber. So this guy will go to defense position. And then Tragedy's effect will activate as well as Aluber. And you do get to choose which Chainlink resolves first. Aluber is more important here. So again, if they had held the Ash Blossom, activate the Aluber in Chainlink 1, and then activate your Tragedy as Chainlink 2. So we are going to then search out Dramaturg first, and then search out the field spell. This also plays around something like Gamma. If Gamma were to come down, it would negate the Tragedy, but not the Aluber. So if they were holding something up until this point, which they might, that's, you know, at least you're getting the fusion spell, which is way more important. At this point, we will fire off the fusion spell. We will activate it in order to send a 1, 2, and 3. Oh, not what I wanted. 3 to the grave to go for our first Darklord. Dramaturg will special summon itself back to the field, and then we can activate the effect of first Darklord and bring out the Superbia. And then Superbia effect can activate here in order to bring out, it doesn't really matter what we bring out at this point, because none of these cards will do anything, and we cannot special summon out Ixchel. So, it doesn't matter too much. In fact, we don't even have to activate the effect of Superbia. But yeah, we'll just bring out an Indulged. Yeah, there we go. At least at this point, we could go IP Masquerena, and we could potentially go for 1, 2, 3, 4, and have a 4-mat Appaloosa, which is even scarier than a 3-mat Appaloosa that is untargetable. So, yeah, there's that. On top of this, again, we still have first Darklord, which can bring back Superbia, which can then bring back another card. So, there's that. On top of the fact that we still have Branded Opening, and we have Ixchel that could be brought back, which could then search a card. We have Aluber in grave. Very, very solid setup. Yeah, this is what you like to see. Okay, so this hand is rather interesting. We have Allure of Darkness, and then nothing to really send off of it. On top of the fact that we do have Branded Opening, but not really a good discard for it. We have the Despia Theater, which is nice, but again, not really great. So what here would we be wanting to go for? Well, what I'm going to do is we're going to activate our Branded Opening here. We are going to view the deck. Oh, sorry. Discard card. What do I want to discard? We're going to discard the Contact. It doesn't really do anything for us here. So, yeah, we'll just discard that. The rest of these cards could potentially do something. So, there's that. We are going to actually add to our hand the Tragedy. Normally, you'd be special summoning Aluber here, but because we have Allure, it's actually better to do this. So, this goes to the grave. We will activate the Allure of Darkness. We will draw and draw. We draw into Indulged as well as Fallen of Albaz. This one's less nice, but this one's very nice. It's a normal summon that we can actually do something off of. Alright, sorry about that. I ran out of space in my computer for more recordings. So, as I was saying, Indulge is great. It's a normal summon that we can actually do stuff with. Anyway, Fallen of Albaz is nice. It's a dark, which is very good for us. But, of course, we are going to banish the Tragedy here in order to... we already drew, but now we get to add another card off of Tragedy, which we will add the Aluber, because, again, we haven't normaled. So we're going to add this guy to our hand. What did I just add? That's not what I wanted. Go back to the top of the deck. Thank you. Okay, so we already have the Theater here, which is rather interesting. I could have gone for Dramaturg as well, because at least we could have fusion summoned using Indulged or Fallen of Albaz to go for, you know, something like that. But what we are going to do here is... actually... Yeah. So, I'm going to go for the Aluber here. we're going to activate its effect in order to search out another copy of Branded Opening. So we'll add this guy to the hand. And then we will go for the theater. We will activate the theater here in order to go for our Q. So we'll send this guy to the grit, this guy to the grit, this dueling book, and this guy to the grave. We'll keep the indulged. It's very nice to have. And then we will just set this and pass. Now, what we could have done, other than this, in case you wanted to know, is instead we could have searched out the... sorry, let's go with this, like this. Let me just reset this real quick. What we could have done is we could have searched out the Dramaturg. So this guy goes to the hand. I don't think we had this. So yeah, at this point we go for the fusion here. We go fuse. Oh right, declare. There we go. So we go for the fusion here, and we go for Q once again. I guess technically we could go for Titaniclad. Not really the best idea. It's just big, and it doesn't really float that much, whereas this guy does. So, yeah, we will do that. This guy will then special summon itself since it was used as material. We'll use it as material. And then we'll send the Fallen of Albaz to the grave. We could keep this in hand, but I prefer to have the fairy specifically in hand. The reason I'm not as big of a fan of this versus the Aluber is because, while yes, we do get another monster onto the field, it doesn't actually give us as much protection. Aluber in the grave is better protection. It kind of depends on whether or not you have more back row that the opponent may want to remove with something like a Lightning Storm or what have you. But yeah, I don't know. It's fine. Both versions are fine in like as an end board. So it just kind of depends on what you want to go for. If you're going up against more decks that are specifically going into the extra deck that you can negate the effects of pretty easily, maybe go for Dramaturg. If you want to have additional protection for your Q specifically, then go for Aluber. Alright, so that's basically it for the combos. There's nothing really else that I need to teach you. It's mostly just figuring out the lines yourself, and a lot of it is playing against specifically different decks and different opponents to see what all you can actually do with these different decks and stuff like that. So all in all, it's fine. It's a lot of Darklord and Despia stuff. You know, being able to easily get out the first Darklord is most important, and just absolutely, just it generates you as much as advantage as a lot of the other top tier decks. So yeah, very, very nice. Having an untargetable Apollosa is very interesting. So, you know, going into IP Masquerena is very nice. And yeah, all in all, very fun. Hope that you guys did indeed enjoy this and that you learned something from it. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.